I felt like I was kind of being a weirdo with my little poems at home. But then once I found community and I found a workshop where I could go and show my poems and people could give me feedback, I really felt like I was finally where I belonged.
I'm Mireille.
I'm Özgecan.
And we are two Kazakhs living in Berlin, Germany.
And this is our nomadic lives. Okay. Oh, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Happy back to school. That's a great way to start. Yes, because we love back to school.
Oh, yes. Back to school is the back to work and creativity and freedom.
Yes, exactly. We both are also artists. I'm a writer and you're...
I paint and I create illustrations other than I work professionally as a psychologist.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I think we're both pretty multi-interested and disciplinary. Yeah. So, and I come from an academic background and still like to research. So I've actually been reading a book about virtual intellectuals. So, academia is a pretty precarious job market at the moment. You usually need to go for a postdoc, and then that's usually in a different country. I mean, I had the opportunity to go to Finland, and I was just like, no, I don't want to go to Finland. And I didn't want to go to Finland with a newborn. But, and then after the postdoc, like basically you get 500 applications for the same job. And I just didn't want to move around that much. So now I've ventured into creativity. But this book was about how a lot of people, actually a lot of academics, but also artists who are also in a precarious job market, how they started to embrace the internet more in order to put out their research and their art online and kind of generate an income through things like Patreon or other sort of coffee or what else is there, Kickstarter to sort of fund their projects. Anyway, so that's something I was reading, and I thought it was really interesting because I come both from academia and I'm an artist, and I chose the two most precarious job markets for myself. So now I'm on the internet.
But you're also a mother.
And I'm also a mother. And thank you back to the segue of the today's topic. And we were talking about how, I love Mondays because that means I can go back to my creative work. And how you love Mondays too.
I also love Mondays, and September is like a big Monday of the year. Among the many reasons why we love the beginning of the work flow and week, it's the ability to do the work. But then we have, as mothers here living in Europe, we have such a limited also time to really fit in with our work. How I feel about it after now completing the study and saying bye for now to academia, and feeling that I missed the time for me to be creative, to create, and to actually to work with people. Academic stuff is very important and interesting, but then it needs you fully.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think for me as well, I actually started writing the novel when I started my PhD, but it was impossible for me to finish the novel while I was doing the PhD. I did write poems, a lot of poems, but that was easier because they're shorter. And so for me too, I needed to have that blank space and that time and that headspace to really create. So I totally get that. And I think in terms of back to school, I feel like always it's the beginning of a new year for me. That's when I get to start my New Year's resolutions in a way.
I think for all of us who are who come from childhood, the September is a very special beginning of the year, even if the new year happens in the winter. But also for our listeners, I think it will be interesting to, we talked about it before the podcast already, how experience of being a mother, working mother, is different here in the West world, and how that same thing and also the possibilities that you have, opportunities, are different when you are living in Kazakhstan.
Yeah, see, this is so interesting because, for one, like the very first thing that comes to my mind is that, like, I mean, like, this is just background maybe, but creativity in general, as people from immigrant families here, as immigrants, for a long time was not really supported or encouraged because, there's this whole thinking around the fact that creativity doesn't pay. It's not going to bring you a stable paycheck. It's very precarious, which is all very valid. And for me, for instance, it took me a really, really long time, like a very, very long time, to allow myself to create in the first place, to be creative. I mean, I was always creative. I always wrote poems. I always journaled. Like, I was always writing, but never with the intention of creating something out of it, though there was always this deep burning sort of this deep burning longing to really write this book I've been wanting to write. But I was always also looking for permission. And whenever I went to Kazakhstan, I always felt there's so much creativity there. There's so much creativity there. And, I would know someone who's studying to be a mathematician, and at the same time, they're this brilliant hip hop dancer. Or, I would meet someone who's studying to become a professional dombra player. And I also think it comes from the culture and the history of entertainment and guests and konak, of always, finding things to do together when you did have visitors, and not being afraid to speak in front of people, to express. I mean, one thing I really struggled with when I went to Kazakhstan was like the tilek aitu, like wishing well so if you go to someone's wedding or to someone's birthday party, you stand up and you give them a wish, right? I wish for you to be happy. I wish for you to, and I think it's so beautiful. It's this sort of when you have a visitor, of holding them up kind of, and lifting their spirits. And then having your spirits lifted in return.
Of course.
And I think it's really beautiful.
There is a deep, deep value in this exchange. They bring that. Береке келеді, we say in Kazakh. And then, do I hear you right that it's the trip to Kazakhstan that gave you this realization of, so I can be both? Or
yeah, it was more that I just found it so fascinating that younger children or youth were encouraged to perform in front of the people or in front of the community. And I feel like growing up in Europe, and I do think it might be a bit of a Western thing, you're kind of scared or embarrassed to do that. And I feel in Kazakhstan, even if you can't sing that well, you will sing. Even if you can't dance that well, you will dance. And if you can dance really well, that's even better. And most people can. And all of this. So self-expression is really promoted, I feel. It's really, I think it's in the culture. And I feel like that's something that we kind of forgot or let go of in our diasporic communities.
I see. It's definitely so. For that to be saved and to prosper further, you definitely need a community. Because I have flashbacks from like back in childhood. For you to be able to speak up, to perform, to say something, there are so many people around who will be like, come, no, you can. And then there's so much encouragement.
Yes.
And then after that, how if kid performs in front of you, we have the tradition of adults come in and give some small money. And no one, if a child is performing at some small gathering, playing dombra or doing whatever he can or she can do, then adults for sure always support, and that's encouragement. And you feel like, this is liked by others and this is important, and of course I want to do that. So I think definitely to develop that creative part, you need this community that encourages that.
Yes.
In this term, I can feel after living for several years here how we don't have that community where kids could be like, okay, come, say something, say a wish or do something, perform. And then it's something that is possible there and less possible here.
Yeah. And I think through that encouragement, you just naturally then become more inclined to try things out.
It's definitely something that prospers within the community. And here I feel that's the sad part probably with growing kids here. And that's probably one of the reasons why I think I want for them to have the chance to live in that community, to grow in that community. Because creativity is really, really supported widely. But then also I think this part of being in between, a little bit lost about I have to be that as a good girl to like really get the education, and then my parents, they really believe in me and I have to get those diplomas, and then you get to try something of your own. It's something of the millennials. I think many of my friends and people whom I know from even like from distance going through this rediscovery, and it's this probably 90s time, the difficult time of like lots of change happening, and then
90s then, after independence.
Yes, after independence from Soviet, yes, and then different time, different professions were on demand, and parents want you to succeed, so they give you direction and you follow the direction, or they suggest you what they feel that you are good, and then you go that way, and then it's like this natural way of rediscovering yourself in the process of life, I guess.
Yeah, I think it also has to do maybe because the economy is changing, because back in those times when we were growing up, a diploma, a good school diploma, university diploma just guaranteed you jobs. And that's just not the case anymore. But I think that's like probably just like you said, then a generational thing of the different experiences of our parents after getting the diploma or after not getting the diploma. So what I would be then interested in, because I see this in the West and especially among women, is that there's almost always this sense that we need permission to create before we can create. A very simple example, when I was taking loads of writing classes to like improve my writing, the majority of the classes were women. And you know, we always had like maybe a handful of men in the classes. So then I'm curious about this, because why? You know, why do women maybe not feel as entitled to be creative? And then, you know, I hear from certain men who like just yesterday woke up and wanted to write a book, and they turned on their laptop and yesterday they start writing their book. And then there are women who are like taking class after class and then writing their book 20 years later after something terrible happens to them in their lives, because they feel like if I don't write this now, I'll never write it. So, and I wonder if it's the same in Kazakhstan. I feel like not, but...
I think this male, female, and then woman having a little less, how did you say? Entitled, yes, to do the thing is worldwide situation, but in some communities more, in some less. And then in Kazakhstan, it's for sure the situation that first of all you are expected to be a wife, mom. Yes, you have to have a degree, but unfortunately not always because you want that degree, but because that's the title that really stays. So it's definitely a situation. In Kazakhstan, first of all, you have to be a woman, you know, like your biological womanly development.
That's the expectation from the gender.
That's the expectation, and then comes the freedom to be, to create, to do. It's good if you still have the connection to that will of yours. Definitely, I know lots of beautiful, creative women. And there is a community that will support that. But I think it's a very personal thing for everyone to walk by this path. There is definitely something collective that we experience all together, but also it's so very personal to everyone. You have to really go into, like, you know how the male-female roles are divided in our community and very
patriarchal.
Yes, patriarchal historically. And then, of course, there's so much encouragement and easy goingness to, if you are a boy, to do certain things, and then probably as a girl you have more challenges. But from my experience, I feel that every person has such a unique story.
But as a society, see, this is interesting because you're a psychologist, so you're always going down into the individual mindset. And I'm like, As a sociologist, as a society, encouragement is more turned towards the boys to go and pursue and do and be a doer. But yeah, tell me how you ended up becoming a visual artist or how you found your way, or did you feel like you needed to give yourself permission to?
Well, it took me 30 years and 2 diplomas and 1 migration.
Love it. Can I just ask one more question? Was it after the birth of your child or second?
Yeah.
First or second?
First hit. It was after second child.
That's interesting because I always hear this. Like I have a really, really good poet friend, and she also always says, once I had my child, I felt like I have to write. Like there's no more, something about that. Yeah. Anyway, you don't need to have children to be creative. I'm not saying that, but like there's
maternity really does push you to some places. Yes. I think it's the crisis that we go through, as it's a huge transition. And then in my case, I was going and trying here and there, remembering that, hey, I love to draw and paint sometimes back in my childhood, but then there was no free expression and painting, even if I did lots of drawings and everything for my bachelor's and first master's. But then,
can you tell us what your bachelor's was?
Okay, I hear where you're tilting me to. So yeah, it was the first degree that I had, and it was architecture and urban design. And then that's where my very innate natural desire and my liking of the visuals, of the painting sometimes, but I never went to the artist school, and I was thinking to be a designer. But then my dad is an engineer. He's like, okay, if you are going to that direction, then something of more, and you have knowledge in mathematics, so go. It was suggested to go to architecture. So, and then I did get my bachelor's, I did get my master's,
also in the same
urban design and architecture. Yes, that's where I traveled to Canada. And after that, I have my family, my baby, and I have this maternity leave of me not being able to return really to full work capacity, having a baby, but then also having this need to do something. And that's how I started my journey working with people. It's a long story, you know it, but the back problem, the physical treatment,
you
the
had
yes,
back problems
I had a problem after giving birth, and then while finding the way to heal that, I found my fascination about what body can do and how what's happening with the body is doing actually to my emotional state. And then my studies back then it was the gymnastics for the spine, and then the whole physical anatomy, structure, human structure. So from the building designer and city designer, I became a kind of human body designer. Yes, it was my maternity leave. And after that, I had my second baby and COVID came. And that was a time when we all were stuck at home with kids. I had this yard. I had the fences looking at me, and we only go out to be like in the yard. And those fences, I never liked them. I thought like the colors were a little old. And then I have the idea, okay, let's give them some life. And I go buy paint, and I paint my first murals. So the journey of like, I always with my second baby Amira, when I was pregnant, I loved visiting Brooklyn has these beautiful streets with lots of murals.
Okay.
And that was in my mind for so long. So I painted my yard into this flower paint murals, and I loved the process. I enjoyed it so much, and I think after that I realized it helps me a lot. It's something that I was yearning for so long. And I'm like, why didn't I have time for this before? Why didn't I allow myself that before? And in reality, I didn't have time because I was always studying and loads going on. You don't have time for creativity. And because we live in capitalistic world, like how is it gonna really help me to develop professionally? Not really. So you just continue. And here and there I started allowing myself to do that while I was working as a somatic therapist with people and discovering my way into the human soul, like actually. And then this migration to Germany and my personal journey of self-rediscovery and connection back to my culture, to identity. In this term, I think it's in Germany that I've painted the most canvases and works. And that's the journey of actually feeling that connection in me. So and now after these years, after illustrating a book, giving space to my visual seeing and understanding that I remember and see things, understand things more like that. And then I love the logo that I can explain something visually better. Yeah. So it's part of me too. And it's the way of my self-healing. And then supports the journey of like working with me, with other souls, being me. So amazing. It's a very long story. Oh my God, tell me your story.
Oh my God, I don't know how to follow up on that, but no, I love it. Like I think it's a beautiful story because, like I said, something about it was similar to yours. Actually, it was in Kazakhstan. So in 2011, I went to Kazakhstan after I finished my master's degree. To teach there in Astana, and there I was a lot in my room alone, and I came across this YouTube clip of a spoken word poet, and I was so in love. I was like, I want to do this. This is so cool. And when I was younger, I used to write poems when I was like a teenager, and then kind of stopped, but I always wrote. I always journaled. I always had pen and paper. And I saw these spoken word poems and I was like, this is amazing. Like, I really want to do that. Like, I want to be on stage and I want to read my poems. I knew I was going to go to Ireland the year after. And so I started looking for like, is there spoken word in Ireland? Is there poetry slams I can do in Ireland? And that's kind of how everything started in Ireland. And the thing is, what happened in Ireland, I still think it's so beautiful and magical. People welcomed me with such open arms into the scene. So in Ireland, they have like these pubs and bars, and usually in the cellar, they would have open mic nights for poetry or music. And I used to go to these, and for a while, I would just watch. I was way too scared. I would just sit there and I would watch people read poems and more poems, and I kept going like for 6 months or something. I just kept turning up to these open mic nights, and at some point I was like, I write poems, and if they're reading these type of poems, maybe I can read my poems. And I remember we went with Ayat, my husband, and that first night I read a poem. It was actually about my grandparents' migration. And I read it and I got such good feedback and reaction from the audience. And I remember on our walk home, Ayat was really proud of me and he was like, yeah, you did it. And like, he was like lifting me up and everything. And I was like, oh my God. And I came home with such a thrill and such, excitement. And then I started going more often and reading. And at some point, one of the facilitator of the evening, Aidan Murphy, hey Aidan, if you're listening, he was like, do you want to be a featured poet? So they would have featured poets and featured songwriters. And then in the end, they would have the open mic. And I was like, you want me to be a featured poet? And it was like, it was so exciting. So then I went, and that's like, you can read then like up to 5 poems. Like you have 10 minutes then instead of just like 2 or 3 minutes on stage. And that was sort of the beginning of everything. And then I started meeting people, other poets. And I remember the day he introduced me as a poet, right? I felt like, oh my God, he just called me a poet. I mean, by that time I hadn't published anything. I had a little Tumblr page with like parts of poems and things I look back on now. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so cringe now. But you got to be cringe to get anywhere in life. And then I met some wonderful poets. I met my dear friend and mentor who started, sending me opportunities. She was like, you should submit your poem there, submit your poem there. And it started getting published. And sort of that was kind of the start of everything. I just found community. And I think that's also really important because I felt like I was kind of being a bit of a weirdo with my little poems at home. But then once I found community and I found a workshop where I could go and show my poems and people could give me feedback and these things, I really felt like I was finally where I belonged. I really felt like I was finally being myself, just who I am naturally. And I was finding people who were like me, who were similar to me. And for the first time, I really, really felt at home and like welcome. I remember having the idea for this novel when I was 15. I'm 38 now. Just finished it.
Just the time to come for the yes.
Yeah. But I couldn't write it while I was doing the PhD. So once I gave birth to my PhD, because like it was...
Yes, like a baby in the family.
Oh my God. Like, no, the PhD for me was like giving birth and the PhD I felt were kind of very similar. So I gave birth to the PhD and then I was like, I'm going to do nothing but write now. And I got pregnant and I couldn't finish the book. And then the rest is history. It just took me way too long. It could have taken me 1 year. It took me 10.
Here, your journey, your example as a woman, mother, and the creative realization of yours and the path.
It was difficult. I mean, because once my child was born, I just, first of all, you go through such physical, emotional, and psychological changes, and you suddenly realize that, your time is very limited, and there's someone who needs your constant attention. So, and I actually needed all my attention to finish the book, but I couldn't. I was constantly scattered. And there's this beautiful quote by the writer Rachel Cusk, who wrote a book about it. Book is called A Life's Work. And she says, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember the exact quote, but she's like, when I'm trying to be a good mother, I'm a bad artist. And when I'm trying to be a good artist, I'm a bad mother. It's like almost like you can't combine the two. And there were so many weekends, because that was the only time I could work, where my husband would take out my child just so I could get some writing done. I missed out on a lot of those days where they would be out and about, going to playgrounds, parks, I don't know what, just exploring Berlin, where I would be at home writing. And for a while, I felt really guilty about it, because I was like, I shouldn't be missing out on this. But then a friend of mine said to me, she was like, but what do you want to model to your daughter? Because she's also a girl. Do you want to model her like complete self-sacrifice, or do you want to model to her that she gets to be herself and have a family? And that kind of helped, because one of the first things you learn as a parent is kids don't do what you tell them to do. They do what you do. Yes. Right? You can tell them all the best stuff in the world they should do, but if you're not doing it, they're not going to do it. So that helped. It kind of alleviated this guilt. But there's always this low running guilt when you're mothering or when you're parenting, that you're abandoning your work. And then when you're working, that you're abandoning your family. At some point, I realized that I was mothering. I was doing a lot of household just because I had a part-time job, and so I had a bit more time. And I was trying to build this literary career. So then I started also translating, and really, really interested in literary translating. But I realized I can't run all of these things at the same time. Like I was either I was going to keep working in a job that was part-time, but like still taking a lot of my energy, or I was going to have to give up the writing or translating. But then giving up that, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So the job had to go. And that was also one of the scariest things I did about 3 years ago, to quit the job.
There's always a sacrifice.
There's always a sacrifice, yeah.
That's unfortunate, but also that's how life is. And then when you are a mother, I feel that there's a slight difference in the roles of fathers, and like how mothers need to be involved and educated. So in the process, one person is like a little bit more, and we always make a choice. I have also my sisters and mothers now, and then to remembering me as a young mother, there is such a detachment that happens from it feels like the community is living life, everyone is living their lives, and they're growing their careers and then doing many things, and here you are with the baby and you can't do much. And at that moment when you are in there, it's hard to see the bigger picture, that it's the short time thing, then you are going to be not out of it, you are with it forever, hopefully you'll have, but then there is a need to ask for help,
yes,
to delegate, to realize that I can't be everything at the same time everywhere. My motherhood was happening mostly in Kazakhstan before Germany, and then I feel how it's different here in the West. Being here, that in Kazakhstan, being it a developing country, you have more opportunities in terms of support, and then caregivers.
It's more affordable.
And then
for
moms,
a middle class.
Yes,
sort of,
and moms are more flexible after that. And then the whole rhythm of the society is different. Everyone is working 2-3 jobs. They can be doing several projects, and first of all, it's possible legally. Like there is no so much bureaucracy like it's here. And then there are caregivers that are available, and you can really, if you want to work hard making money, then you can create that kind of space for yourself by having that support system. My personal experience, when I was a mom in Kazakhstan, in Astana, I was able to do my small business only, and develop and always be studying, learning about humans, and then working only because I had help, and only because I knew that yes, I have this 2-3 hours for me to work, and my kids are okay. And it's not the grandmoms or some relatives, everyone was busy, and everyone like this.
You had babysitters,
nannies, yes. And I knew that I have to delegate, and I need that time. I know that young moms, it's sometimes a difficult choice to make, that am I going to be a bad mom? Why do I have to do I have to leave my child? I'm first of all mom. But then for me it was important, because I felt that no, I need that time for me to be able to spend quality time over there.
And when you moved here, it was a completely different.
When I moved here, I felt parenthood differently. You guys here have so much more to do. And you guys, but I'm 2 now. But I mean, at the beginning, I was shocked by the load of things that actually is on me, that depends on me.
And this is not only, because Kazakh communities are patriarchal or something. I think it's just a whole global issue. It's also, in the West, there's so many, especially in Germany as well, there's so many people talking about the issue of how much mental load is placed upon mothers in society. And a huge issue here is, most of the time it is the women who, if you're in a heterosexual marriage or relationship, it is the women who go on to take part-time jobs just so that they can be available for the children in the afternoons. And then because they're paying less into the system, they're the ones who have issues like pensioner, Altersarmut in German, basically old age poverty, right? So, whereas, if in a heterosexual relationship, the man is working full-time, he's paying the full pension contributions, so then he has more income disposable to himself.
That's totally different, like wider view of how it actually affects life of a woman, of all of us.
It's a huge problem. Also here, socially speaking, there's also, it's interesting because like my oldest daughter, she was going to a different kindergarten before, and it was a kindergarten that was kind of promoted by Ayat's employer. They provided space for the kids of the employees there, and there it was very common to pick up the kids after 5 or 6 p.m. because they were all the employees of this company. And then we moved her to that kindergarten closed, and we moved her to the kindergarten close by to where we live now. And we once wanted to pick her up at 5 p.m. and she was the only one on the playground of the kindergarten. And I was like, what is happening? And the teacher was like, oh, most kids are picked up by 4 or 3, you know? And then there's this social pressure almost to pick up your kid at 3 or 4 as well, even if you're busy, even if you're working, just because you don't want that child to be alone in the kindergarten on the playground. So, and this obviously affects how much you can work, how much you can do things, and then it's expected of you to figure out your pension as a woman. But at the same time, constantly people are telling you, oh, like you sent your child to kindergarten at such a young age. And you're like, yeah, but if I don't, you know, contribute financially for my future well-being, who's going to do it? Because the government doesn't care that you're working part-time.
Yes. And it's really the case of, I'm curious here about how it is in the community, in our similar but like far geographical communities. It's mostly the closest, the woman who will really develop this feeling of guilt that they like set the expectation.
And it's not only our community. It's also in Western society. Yeah.
It's sometimes I felt that older women don't it's them that they said like, oh, we've been through the wars. Oh, you are having a year like easier. You have so much support at home with everything, but still you want to do this and that. And I feel that in general women should be more tolerant to each other, and then it's only us who understands this obligation of being a mom, but also wanting to be a professional
and wanting to pursue the things you want to pursue, right? And it's always in tension with each other. Everything is like, I feel like there's a tension between all of those needs or wants. Is I want to be an artist, but art pays really badly, and then on top of that, but I have to take care of my pension, but on top of that I want to make art, but on top of that I want to be a good mom to my kids, or I want to be a good parent to my kids, but on top of that I don't want them to feel like you know, I'm not picking them up early enough.
And then you're like, whoop, return back, you didn't do the laundry.
Exactly.
And this machine is not loaded yet. And then all this physical mundane work that requires your presence,
which is also labor.
Absolutely.
Unpaid labor. If you were to get someone to do it, you would have to pay them. So what do we do with that?
It's really a woman do perform the second shift. They're always second and third shift, and it's really for those who are thinking. I know many people probably will be listening to also have the idea of how is life here and this beautiful Western European life. I'm gonna just crush that image probably because the parenting is so much easier in Kazakhstan.
If you have the means.
If you have the means, yes.
Yeah.
If you have the means, your support system, and then in this term to have that freedom. And it's the opportunities of developing country. Everything is so fast and so in the process of constant change.
Yeah.
That's also not stable. Yeah. Not so stable. Yeah.
I mean, the great part is we've at least finally got over our creative blocks and allowed ourselves to be whatever we needed to be. But you know, they always say it takes a village to raise a child. And, you know, we kind of dismantled the village with the way we live now in the modern world. And everything is tied to the nuclear family. And whereas, you know, our ancestors, they lived in villages and old, but the kid was raised by multiple people. And this was actually really, really healthy for the child. And yet there are also downsides to a really close-knit village, or the ideas that were carried forward from then. So then how do you find a middle way between that, a good community, a healthy community, and finding space for yourself to be who you need to be? And that's, I think, the big challenge that parents going forward need to face is, on the one hand, here you have these opportunities to send your kids to kindergartens and I think it's healthy for kids to go to learn how to socialize with other children in this.
And kindergarten is free here.
Yeah. It gives you the space to sort of explore different options when you have sort of government help.
I feel that with this kind of borders, restrictions of motherhood, of being responsible for home, it also gives a very strong sense of management, time management. The skills are just, oh my God, they are the best.
But you know what? I actually, when we first met and we started following on you on Instagram, I totally related with that. You posted a story about, the kids are out the door. I have 2 hours to paint. And then I see you rolling your painting wagon toward the living room. And I was like, this is exactly what it's like,
yes.
to be sort of pursuing arts and being a mom at the same time, or a parent at the same time with the...
You don't have time to lose time.
Yes. To our listeners, what are your stories of creativity and parenthood, or just creativity in general? We'd love to know.
Or just motherhood in general, how you're going through this journey. And
send us comments also if you like these type of topics, or if you would like to hear other topics as well.
Audio and post-production is made by Özgecan.
All visuals prepared by Mire.
And our theme track is prepared by Dash.
The podcast was filmed and recorded in our home studio.
Thank you for your time.